Hello there, 7th graders. This is Miss Minowitz, and I'm here today to talk to you about DNA. So instead of doing notes like we might do in class, we're going to do something a little bit different where we have the video. So please make sure that you are following along and filling out your notes as you're listening to this video. Please also make sure that you put your name on your note sheet so that if you lose it, I can get it back to you. So the first thing you're going to do is you're going to watch this video, and then there's some other things for you to do on that sheet. So we're going to start talking about DNA today. And the shape of DNA, okay, if you look here, there's this picture of what scientists have kind of put together based on different models. This isn't actual DNA. We don't get this close to actual DNA shape like that. But the shape of DNA is what is called a double helix. And this kind of looks like a ladder that's been twisted. And that's the shape that DNA has. And there was a big controversy about discovering that and who came up with that, and some stolen research and some very interesting stuff that's in the video links later that hopefully you'll get to about the shape of DNA, but it is called a double helix. So what is DNA? First of all, DNA stands for deoxyribonucleic acid. Okay, it's an acronym, DNA, shortened for that thing, deoxyribonucleic acid. It is a molecule. And it contains all of the instructions that make each living thing unique. So this is what makes you different from another person. It's what makes a tree different from a bush, different plants different from animals. It's basically what makes you you. It is information that is passed from the parent to the offspring during reproduction. So this DNA gets passed on from parent to child. DNA is found in the nucleus of the cell, and it's packaged into things called chromosomes, and we've talked about chromosomes a little bit earlier, and those we see during mitosis, which is basically our DNA that's condensed into these shapes. If you take a look at our picture here, this kind of puts it into perspective. So we have this double helix shape of DNA, okay, and it gets kind of grouped into chromosomes in this, and that is in the nucleus, and that is inside the cell. So when we're talking about DNA, it is a very, very small thing located in the nucleus of our cells and of different cells. If we take a look at this picture here, this is showing us what human chromosomes look like when they have been stained. So they are not normally all these cool different colors, as neat as that would be, but in order to help group them or determine which one is which, they kind of stain them, and you can see what it looks like. This is called a karyotype. And this is for humans, because it has 23 pairs, or 22 plus X and Y, of chromosomes, which is unique to humans. And so this is kind of a picture of showing what it looks like. And we are going to look at what DNA looks like from strawberries in class later this week. So what is DNA made of? Okay, or what about the structure of DNA and the different parts of DNA? So DNA is made up of subunits that are called nucleotides. Okay, and those nucleotides contain three different things. The first one is a phosphate group. The second one is a sugar group. And the third thing is what's called a nitrogen base. And there are 4 different nitrogen bases that your nucleotide can have. So it can have what's called adenine, thymine, guanine, or cytosine. Okay. So you need those 3 pieces together, sugar, phosphate, and base, in order to make what's called a nucleotide. And we get all these strings of all these nucleotides together, and that makes up a DNA molecule. One unique thing about DNA is that the nucleotides are paired. One pair forms like one rung of the ladder, and the other, or one nucleotide forms one rung of the ladder, and another one forms the other side, and so we get them pairing together. And there's a rule here that A always pairs with T, and C always pairs with G, and that's just based on the structure of those different bases. And together, the shape, everything together, is called a double helix. So if we take a look, you have a picture of a nucleotide on your notes handout, and basically you have a sugar. Here the sugar is deoxyribose, that's how you get the name. Deoxyribose sugar, that's this part here. Okay. The base is over here. And then the phosphate is up here. Okay. So when we put them all together, if we look at the picture on the right, we've got a sugar and a phosphates all connected to each other, and then we have the bases sticking out on the side. So together, sugar, phosphate, and base creates a subunit of DNA called a nucleotide. and then those we have different ones pair with each other. So what does DNA do? DNA was kind of a mystery to scientists for how in the world they could possibly carry off all this information in these 4 different bases. So basically the order of those different bases, so we talked about there's 4 different bases, adenine, thymine, guanine, cytosine. The order that they go in your DNA actually determines your traits. Because what happens is that order that it goes into, okay, codes for a protein. And that sequence is called a gene. So if you've heard of like your genes or genetics or genetic information like we've talked about, we're talking about parts of that long piece of DNA. One chunk of that codes and tells your body to make a protein. And so basically how DNA works is that it contains the instructions to make proteins. And based on the proteins that you make, that makes you different from someone else. If you make more of a different protein, or you don't make that protein at all, or you make a lot of something else, you are going to be different from someone else. So DNA tells your body which proteins to make. Okay, that is kind of our key point from this here. There's a lot more detail with how we end up replicating or making 2 copies of DNA and how exactly we go from DNA to protein. That's a much more complicated step. But the main idea that I want you to understand is that DNA, okay, tells your body which proteins to make. And based on that, that makes people different from someone else. All right, thanks for watching. We'll see you in class.